tariff increases because at this point, American imports aren't marketable at these levels. They're calling it a, quote, joke. Eunice Yoon joins us this morning on the ground in Beijing. What is the latest?
Not funny, though.
Thanks, Andrew. So these new tariffs are going to go into effect in 6 hours' time. And as you were suggesting, the language around this decision is really interesting. The Chinese Commerce Ministry had called these tariffs abnormally high. They said that they were a joke. And the argument is that at these levels, Chinese people wouldn't even be able to buy some of these American goods or wouldn't want to buy American products. So the ministry went on to say that if the United States continues to play the numbers game of tariffs, then China will ignore it. So instead, the focus has been on how to support Chinese exporters from President Trump's 145% tariffs. And it looks as though the government is also marshaling some support from the private sector. Today, JD said that it's going to buy $27.3 billion worth of Chinese exports this year to sell into the Chinese market. Alibaba, its grocery chain, Hema, is going to be fast-tracking exporters to sell into the China market. And then we also saw some support for Chinese companies that want to use American tech, because the Semiconductor Industry Association defined what it means by a U.S. chip. So a U.S. chip, if it's designed in the U.S., but then it's taped out or basically turned into a chip elsewhere, then those ones would not be subject to a tariff by the Chinese.
What is the political sort of view or just sentiment among people on the ground about what's happening here, and how much support, therefore, does President Xi have in all of this, and the government, to the extent that he cares about what the people think at any given moment?
That's great in elections. It's amazing. Very popular.
Yeah, I mean, right. It's difficult to say exactly what the Chinese people think in terms of the support for this tactic by President Xi Jinping. But the calculus for President Xi Jinping is really different from, say, President Trump, because the whole ideology for diplomacy here is that President Xi, who's been spending years and years making himself shaping himself as the savior of the Chinese people and the one who's going to rejuvenate the country, really cannot be seen as bowing down to the West, and in particular, the United States. So it makes, right now, it's very difficult to see President Xi Jinping saying, okay, well, let me call up President Trump and let's make a deal. It's just, right now, the conditions are not right for that.
Well, what happens if you criticize President Xi in China, Eunice? You don't recommend it?
It depends if you do it publicly. Yes, I wouldn't recommend it. You would disappear.
Right,
and so in that way, in the U.S., you have, yeah?
There's sort of
that could happen here, too.
There's sort of two views that I've heard from U.S. negotiators who are involved in this. One is that China doesn't have, leverage in this situation, and therefore may be willing to give something up in all this, and in a sort of patient way, oddly enough, might be willing to say, you know what, I'll give you something now because who knows where the politics of America are going to be in a couple of years from now. We'll make it up on the back end later, meaning that's a sort of long view that would be beneficial to the U.S. The other sort of long, patient view is to say, we can wait these people out and we just don't care. And so which is it?
Yeah.
I mean, I see the one that's very visible right now, but as you see this play out.
I think it's the second one. I think that President Xi is looking forward, and that the most important thing when you think about his psychology, the psychology of the Communist Party, is for their own survival. And right now he has shaped an entire narrative around him that he is the one who is going to stand up for China. That's been going on for years here. So the idea that he would at some point just bow down to President Trump just seems unfathomable.
Eunice Yoon in Beijing this morning. We appreciate it. We're going to be watching this, as you can imagine. Thanks.
All right, Wells Fargo just released